let's go ahead and tell you just a little bit about TSheets before we dive into the demo. TSheets is an automated time tracking and scheduling software. We're in about 100, just over 100 different countries across the world, and we have a very a focus on construction and contractors. So we understand the industry. Our technology has been built around the needs of the industry, and we're built on customer feedback. So as over the 10 years that we've been in existence, we've allowed customers to kind of message into us and let us know what they need, and then our developers put their heads down and get to work and build the technology that works for you. We are completely DCAA and DOL compliant. We have a full built-in QuickBooks integration where we'll pull over all the pertinent information for time tracking into TSheets. So you have no need for company setup. It'll be set up upon you first sign up. And all of our time data tracked within TSheets will flow into QuickBooks seamlessly with a click of a button within the weekly timesheets for payroll, job costing, and other accounting needs.
So when I open up the application, my employees all have a username and password. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is enter that username and password for my employee. Once he gets signed in on his specific application, it's actually really nice. Because he won't have to sign in again if it's that same device. It's going to remember that it's him here. So it's signing in. On the application here, what it's going to take me to is basically my time card. So my time card has a specific list that's actually been brought over. So I'm currently integrated with QuickBooks. So from this integration, I can go ahead and clock into a specific customer. So this is my customer list. So I want to go ahead and say what customer I'm working with. This could also be a specific project. It could also be a location, really whatever I have my list set up as. So today I'm going to be working at Skyscraper. I'm going to go ahead and mark that time as billable. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose my service that I'm doing as well, since I want to go ahead and capture these rates for invoicing purposes. So as an employee, now I'm going to go be doing some reconstruction. I also have a notes build, so throughout the day I can actually leave any notes that I think are needed for what I'm actually completing here. We can just do like a test note. And then once I enter all of that information, so I have all that entered, I can go ahead and click the clock in button. Just want to make sure it's caught up here. So once I click clock in, we're going to see it starts my task total. So up here I can see how long I've actually been working on that specific task. I also have a daily total, so my employees actually already worked 8 hours and 33 minutes. But it will kind of keep itself up to date and start tracking that for me. At this point, if I've been working at this location for a while, I could do one of really 3 things here. I have a lunch break button, so there's that take a break button near the bottom. I could clock out if I'm done for the day. Or maybe I'm actually working on multiple different tasks throughout the day. There's a big switch button right here. And if I click switch, I can go ahead and say which customer I'm working with now. So I can click on Skyscraper and say, okay, now I'm working at 1313 South Longmont. Once I choose that, I can go ahead and make any other changes that I need to make as far as billable, yes or no. If my service item needs to be something else as well, I can make that change. I can go ahead and click done. And what will happen is my task total will now start over. And if my task total, so that will start over, but it will keep my daily total down here. So as I'm doing different jobs throughout the day, I can still make sure I have the correct hours for payroll, but it can be tracked against these specific jobs you guys are doing, so you can make sure you're not spending too much time in one area, use it for job costing or payroll as well. Jumping over here, one of my other favorite features of the application is the crew feature. And why this is so handy is maybe you have a crew leader that's out in the field with your employees, and not all of your employees necessarily have a smartphone. You could give permissions to where a crew leader could actually clock in multiple people at once. So when I click on that crew functionality, I'm able to see my list of employees here. Of course, please remember this is based around permissions. So I could come over here and say, Amy and Chris are both working for me today. I could go ahead and click next. And I can either choose to clock them in or enter a number of hours. So maybe this is a few days later. I want to say we spent 8 hours on this day. Or I could say, at 3:14, we're all working on this specific task. and I could clock everybody in. And that's kind of the application in a nutshell. One thing that's nice with the application is it's pretty straightforward. We realize that employees don't have a lot of time to learn a new app. So we put it on the phone, and it's very, very straightforward and easy to use. And now I'm going to go ahead and log into my web dashboard and show you guys really all what you can do with this information as it's being captured. So one thing that's nice with the web dashboard is you can use this from anywhere. So it can be in your office, it can be on a tablet, it can really be any location in order to access your TSheets account, as long as you know your username and password. So my fictional company name here is Dutchman Destroyers. We kind of do deconstruction, we take down large things. And I'm going to go ahead and log in as an admin now. So I just logged into TSheets in the web dashboard, and this is where you really get the juicy stuff. This is where you see a lot of this information. So one of my favorite windows is this Who's Working window over here to the right. And what's really, really handy with this Who's Working window is it's something that paper time cards or Excel spreadsheets will never allow you to do. It literally lets you see who's working, how long they've been working, what specific task they're working on, how long they've actually been working on that specific task, and then if they're using their smartphone, here's my favorite part, we actually pull the GPS location. So where they clocked in from, you'd actually be able to see in real time. You can actually see a specific map as they're moving throughout the day as well. So 2 of my employees are actually in the same location right now. I could go ahead and choose a satellite view if I wanted to actually see specifically where they are. And then maybe I wanted to go ahead and see where Oliver has been today. I could actually click specifically on his name on this Who's Working window. And then I can go ahead and click on this little GPS icon right here. And it's going to pull up a personal map for Oliver Queen. And so green's going to actually be the clock in point. And then if he moves throughout the day, it's going to actually put more points on the map. So how it works is it pulls a location as soon as they clock in. If they move within 150 meters from where they originally clocked in from, it's going to put another point on the map. And then when they clock out, it's also going to put a point on. So you will literally capture basically a breadcrumb of where they've been throughout the day. You could even click on a specific link here and see, okay, so he clocked in at 11:49. It then pulled another point at 11:58. And he has been here for the rest of the day. Another thing that's really powerful with the Who's Working window is if I had someone, so maybe Amy was actually supposed to be here at 12 o'clock and I can see she's only been working for 2 minutes, I can figure out what happened and why she wasn't here earlier. I can also see like, okay, she's working at 13 South Longmont. I was hoping she was working at a different location. I can make sure we get things sorted out there. And if my employees work more than 8 hours in a day, I'm actually able to kind of see that information over here as well. And actually figure out why they're getting so high and make sure that they're not going to capture overtime for this week. So as time is being tracked, we actually keep a full running list of every single timesheet in this Manage Timesheet section. So this is where you can really go to see what's happening. We do track PTO, so if someone's been tracking or if someone has taken vacation time, you'll see that appear here. Also, I can come and see, who's working, how long they've been working. I can also move down here and see some of my past timesheets. So, for example, maybe a timesheet was a mistake. Maybe I read a note here that seemed incorrect. Whatever I needed to do with this, I could delete a timesheet by clicking this big red X over to the right over here. If I needed to make an edit, there's also a pencil icon, and it's pretty straightforward. Once I click on the pencil icon, I can actually see the clock in and the clock out time, make sure the correct customer is chosen, all that different information that they used when clocking in and clocking out. I can also leave a note, so maybe I want to say, my manager initials that I'm the one that made the edit. I could actually go ahead and do that as well. And then one thing that's really, really nice as edits are being made, so keep in mind it's a permission, no employee will be able to make these edits unless they're given the permission. But say you do have multiple managers that are maybe approving time or maybe editing time, and you kind of want to know what's happening with that timesheet, we do provide that capability. So with any timesheet that's been edited, you'll actually see a little pencil icon appear on this piece of paper over here. So that way you can know that someone's made an edit. If it's just straightforward like this, there's no pencil icon. then no manager has made an edit. That was all the employee. So maybe I want to come over here and see, okay, so Chuck's been working for 3 hours. I wonder what kind of edit was made to this timesheet. I could go ahead and click on it and see what happened. So it actually looks like for this specific timesheet that Danny went in, so he's my other manager, and he actually went in here and clocked in Chuck. He also set the service item and billable item, and he's still currently on the clock. So this is really, really powerful for seeing what's happened with each timesheet, and these have actually stood up with labor disputes before as well in court. So they're kind of just a way to backtrack, and we can't actually touch and edit these logs in any way. So very, very cool there. There's also another, at this point you could go ahead and view another GPS location if needed. So I could come in here and if maybe I wanted to look at this map for today for 8 hours and 33 minutes and see exactly where Tom went, I could go ahead and click on that map. And here's a really cool example of what it actually looks like from clock in to clock out. So, he clocked in over here at 6:06. That seems like the right location. It's actually my house, so it's probably not a good thing. As he was moving throughout the day, it kept pulling those points. Then he must have been at this blue point for a while over here because that was at 6:50. And it didn't actually pull another point until he clocked out at 11:27. So he was over here for a while until he actually moved over here and clocked out at the end of the day. Again, you could always do satellite view and zoom in as much as needed to kind of see where they were at. So any smartphone will pull those GPS points, iPhone or Android phone. We do have a couple other methods of clocking in as well. So if they don't have a smartphone, they could actually use like a dial-in or text message option where they dial a specific number to clock in. Keep in mind that will obviously not pull GPS points because there's no device that can actually pull that at that point. But the crew functionality is great for clocking in multiple people at once that don't have a smartphone. You could also use some type of a tablet or a web dashboard if they have a laptop with them. So as time is being tracked, you obviously need to be able to report it and kind of see what's happening. So we have 20, 30 different reports, but the main ones that I really think would be helpful for you, one would be the approvals report right here. So you can run this one for either a pay period, a week, or even a custom date range. And you could run this one, we'll just say 4/17 to 4/30, my last pay period here. I could choose a specific employee or run it for all of my employees. And so what I can see here is a quick overview of, so from 4/17 to 4/30, Amy worked 24 hours and Chris worked 8 hours and 34 minutes. If anyone has overtime, you can actually see it distinguished over here on the right. So it's in red, so he got some overtime. It looks like he has 3 hours of overtime and actually had some PTO that week as well. So as I'm checking these out, if I think something looks kind of funny, so how did Tom over here get to 83.11 hours? What I could do is I could actually click on View Details. And what it's going to pull up is a full report like this. So first I can see which week he got the overtime. So it looks like the 18th through the 24th, he got a little bit of overtime, as well as the next week. And I can actually see where he's been spending his time. This is really useful for allocating hours. If it looks like he spent 25% of his time at the skate shop, maybe this is admin work and you find out that he's been doing way more admin work than you thought. It's really useful for seeing where that time is being spent. And then you can come down here and view every single clock in and clock out point. You can kind of follow along a day total here. So if he's moving along multiple jobs throughout the day, you can see that. And then you can kind of see, again, the service item. If any notes were left, I'd be able to view those here as well. So once I've kind of verified those, I could actually continue to make any edits as needed. So I could actually highlight a specific timesheet here. And if I needed to delete it, I could. If I needed to make an edit, I could. And if I wanted to view the GPS point, I could from here. So it's very similar to the same capabilities we just had on that Manage Timesheets window, just kind of another spot to verify that information. At this point, say I am integrating with some type of software such as Quickbooks, I could go ahead and approve that. And as soon as it's approved, it's ready to flow into your accounting software. I could go run to the top here, click my export button, and it would automatically export into that system. It feeds right into the system for, again, job costing, payroll, and invoicing, depending on what kind of capabilities are needed. So that's one of our main reports. Another really handy report would be the payroll report. This one's going to look very similar to what we were just looking at. One thing I like about this report that the other one is kind of limited in is it does have a kind of an option up here to see how many hours were worked for this pay period. So maybe we had budgeted a certain amount of hours, but from April 17th to April 30th, we actually worked 329 hours. So very handy for seeing how many hours were actually worked. Again, I can quickly see each person's, I can actually see each person's total hours here. And one thing I really like about this option is I can show details for all employees. So instead of me having to view on an individual basis like I was on the last option, I can look at all of Amy's hours for a pay period. I could then look at all of Chris's hours for a pay period, things like that. Another really handy thing with this report is I could actually download it. So if I download this report, I can download it to CSV or Excel style format. If I go ahead and actually download those, at that point you can use pivot tables, whatever you need to do to kind of mess around with that information a little bit more. Also, I could print it off. And if I go and print it off, one thing that's really handy is I can kind of hide these pie charts. Maybe you're not that visual of a person. I can just hide these pie charts and then just have this really kind of clean layout of each person's time cards for this 2-week pay period, for my pay period here. And then the last report I'll show you today, and again, once you guys get your TSheets account, mess around with all these different reports. There's so many handy options. But one of my other favorite reports is the project report. Now, this is personally my favorite. I'm a very visual person. If you're not, keep in mind once you kind of go through the settings, it's going to give you a lot of information. But I'm going to go ahead, maybe I want to see all of the hours we worked from January 1st until today. This is where you can apply a lot of different filters by either employee. I could sort it by a specific customer if needed, my billable options, things like that. But I'm just going to go ahead and run the report kind of raw and show you what you can do with it. So it looks like from January 1st until until today, I have 3,004 hours that have actually been worked. And I can actually go in here and see where that time has gone. So I can highlight each customer here. So starting with my 19%, looks like 19% of our time has gone towards Midtail Farms. And then I can kind of see the breakdown of where the rest of my time has gone. So this can be kind of handy if maybe we're spending too much time, again, at an office work, or maybe we had a certain amount of hours. We spent 559 at Midtail Farms and we didn't mean to spend that much. Now what can we do for next quarter to kind of make up for this? One thing that's really cool too is I can actually click specifically on one of these. So maybe I want to see how we got to these 559 hours at Midtail Farms. I now just clicked on it, so now we're just looking at those hours. And I can scroll down and apply additional filters. I can see which employees spent their time there. I can see what time was marked as billable. I can see which different service items we completed, which will help me with figuring out the different rates we have. So I can kind of apply all these filters with these pie charts. And I know what you might be saying, I don't like all these pie charts, I just want to see the raw data. Once you've applied those filters, you can come right here and click View Timesheets and view every single timesheet that's applied towards that specific job, which is so powerful to see how did we get to this many hours, what kind of happened here. So you can just kind of start following along the running total right here and see how we got to that many hours. You can also download these to a CSV report as well. So once you've applied those filters, you can download this report and also print this report. And once you've kind of messed around with this filter, you can come up here and clear all filters and start all over with your next customer you want to check out or your next employee you want to check out. One quick thing I did want to also add on is we do have a bunch of different add-ons that you can mess around with. One of my favorites, which is really, really helpful with the construction industry, is overtime alerts. And why that's so handy is because you can go in here and set up different alerts, such as, I want to know once my employees hit 38 hours in a week, I want to get an alert up to 3 times. So I get one at 38 hours, 39 hours, and 40 hours. And I want to get that via email and text for both my admins and managers. So I can make that rule. And so now going forward, I can kind of pay attention to my overtime. And overtime, as we know, is can be one of the most expensive things as it's kind of accumulated out there. So keep in mind, mess around with a bunch of different alerts here. Don't have time to cover all of them right now, but we can always do a personal one-on-one conversation to discuss the different options we have here. And then the last thing I really wanted to go over, because there's still a tiny bit of time here, is the schedule add-on. So this is actually extremely powerful and works very well with our different time tracking that we have. So with the schedule here, I can go ahead and schedule either based around shifts, or I can have it scheduled around jobs. So I could, I've already created some over here. So when you create a shift, you can actually go ahead and choose, a title. You can choose the employees you want to give that shift to. You can go ahead and choose the customer that they're going to be working on and leave any notes. And what's really cool is they're going to see all this information on their application as they are clocking in and clocking out. They'll be able to actually know what they're supposed to be working on. If I needed to drag and drop shifts, so maybe Chris today isn't available, I can go ahead and move this to whoever needs it for today. And this is obviously the weekly view. We have a daily view and a monthly view as well. Once you've published, or once you have a shift on the calendar, when you publish it, it's going to go ahead and bold in like it did just now. And then, so my employees would have gotten a notification. And then the different notifications here are really, really powerful as well. So if a shift has been published or changed, it's going to go ahead and send in a push notification to their cell phone, as well as send them an email. And then it will also notify them an hour before the shift starts if you have that set up. Same for if they forget to clock in and clock out. And this is my favorite one. If an employee hasn't clocked in after the shift has started, it's actually going to let the manager know, hey, so-and-so hasn't clocked in for the day. You maybe want to figure out what's going on here. And so it's a push notification. And one thing that I really like is they'll see it on their application. They'll know what they're supposed to work on. And then it works very well with our Who's Working window. So you can check out the schedule. You can see who's supposed to be on the clock. So maybe Amy was supposed to clock in at 3:15 to 1313 South Longmont. So I can come over here and make sure Amy, okay, 15 minutes ago she did clock in at 1313 South Longmont. And again, if she's using the application, you could go ahead and click on here and make sure she's at the right location, make sure she's not lost somewhere, make sure she's not clocking in from the coffee shop, whatever it happens to be. So it all works really, really well in correlation there. One last thing I did want to mention on the My Time card is this is completely customizable. Maybe you don't have to clock into projects. You don't have to do that. Maybe you don't need service items. Maybe you need mileage. Maybe you need anything here. So all these fields here are completely customizable, and we can make them work for any different type of business here as needed.
One of the things I love about TSheets is that it actually works for contractors. There aren't a lot of time tracking solutions that will download mapping the item and the job into QuickBooks, and that's a basic requirement for job costing, so that's important. The other thing that I love about TSheets is the customer service. Like, you can call or you can chat and someone will get on the phone with you and literally walk you through anything you need step by step, which I think is huge in the day and age of having to submit support tickets. And I mean, the learning curve with new technology, I think, is one of the big barriers for people in general, just to use a lot of new apps. It's like there's so much capability, but the learning curve is rough. And so TSheets really is a superstar in that area. I also think that the GPS tracking is really cool. I have a lot of contractors who, their biggest leak in the job as far as cost is labor. And because there isn't a lot of accountability, and a lot of times they just don't trust that their employees are where they say they are at the time that they, or whatever. So the GPS tracking is pretty huge. I also think that the Crew app is really cool because this is another thing. A lot of my clients would say, well, not all of my guys have smartphones, or they don't even speak English, et cetera, et cetera. So the Crew app allows people to clock in and out really, the project manager or somebody else on site can clock in and out for employees that don't have smartphones or whatever. And so I think that's super cool. And I did want to say a couple of things. Number one, when Danny was doing the demo here for the mobile app, it was just going kind of slow, and I just wanted to let everybody know that that mobile app is really fast. Like, literally, it's just seconds. The demo was just, it was only slow because of the demo walkthrough or whatever. That app is actually really quick. And I also wanted to let everybody know that as far as QuickBooks is concerned, you don't have to necessarily process your payroll in QuickBooks to use TSheets with QuickBooks desktop software. I have a great workaround that will get all of the payroll job costed in QuickBooks, even if you use an outside payroll service. And that's the other thing that I love about TSheets, is because it will import the time into QuickBooks to vendors also, not just employees. So you can also use it for contractors, but it also creates this really cool workaround. I noticed there was a lot of questions about QuickBooks Online, and TSheets does work with QuickBooks Online, but QuickBooks Online does not have payroll job costing capability, and it doesn't actually have the same capability that the desktop software does to even do my workaround. So the issue there is not with TSheets, but it's on the QuickBooks Online and the QuickBooks Online payroll side.